Today's Keys to the Commonwealth episode is brought to you by Nova Insurance. Are you a business owner or property manager in Kentucky or the surrounding states? Protecting your investment has never been more crucial. Nova Insurance specializes in commercial risk advising for your commercial business, as well as your commercial real estate and rental properties. With personalized service and expert advice, Nova Insurance ensures you are covered from every angle. Call 859-687-2004 today or visit them at novainsuranceGroup.com. Nova Insurance, securing your future one policy at a time. Now, today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to Commonwealth podcast. Landry Fields here, excited for another episode today with my new friend D. Hutchins here, now in the Lexington area, but obviously been around different parts of the state and has made his way back to Lexington. But a great story. Got in at maybe a little bit later age than some of us into real estate investing, but I'll kind of leave that for the rest of the episode. So without further ado, Dee, appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I love talking about things as far as it relates to growth and moving forward in life.
Yeah.
And, I was very fortunate that in my early 40s that somebody got a hold of me and kind of shook my cage a little bit, straightened me out, and got me on a better path to thinking and growing. Yeah,
so hop back in the DeLorean then and kind of explain, where you're from originally here in this area, kind of what were the first kind of 40 years as far as just business, income, entrepreneur, if that was already kind of wired that way, or how and you kind of made that switch in your 40s there.
Well, I really wasn't wired that way. I turned 60 next month.
Okay.
Grew up in Danville, Kentucky, and got into teaching and coaching.
Yep.
Not too long after high school. Spent a little time in the Navy. But got into teaching and coaching. Was teaching AP US history and some other elective classes, social studies, coaching boys high school basketball.
Can I just say, by the way, that the fact the older I get, the more history becomes like, it's such a cliche thing, right? But the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, you know what? History is actually pretty cool, and like learning about this type of stuff. We don't have to go down that tangent, but it's just like something I'm more like finding myself more and more interested in lately.
The only thing I would say about that is that I wish more people understood history better because they could critically analyze things going on today.
For sure.
A lot of people are very confused and
instead of recycling things that we've already done or gone through before in history.
They're just misguided. Mm-hmm. They don't know.
Exactly.
But so I'm doing that. And bounced around here in Kentucky. I lived in Paintsville, lived in Beattyville, Hodgenville, Camelsville.
Yeah.
And I'd settled in Hodgenville back in 1999, was teaching and coaching there. I eventually stepped away from coaching. That was in 2006, and started a storage building company. My brother was into selling Amish and Mennonite storage buildings, so we started a company from scratch. State senator friend here get us a meeting with Lowe's.
Yeah.
So we went and pitched the idea of selling Mennonite and Amish storage buildings at Lowe's.
Yeah.
They bought the idea. We partnered with a husband and wife out of Shepherdsville, Kentucky, and we started a company called America's Buildings. Eventually, within about 2 years, we were in about 400 stores.
So was that
multiple states?
Sheds and stuff like that were already pre-built, I assume. So you weren't ordering something and having to wait on it type of stuff.
Not pre-built. When an order was placed, the Amish would build them from scratch.
Okay, so it was
custom stuff.
Okay.
But so the Amish did what they normally did, which is build and deliver. And then the Lowe's just allowed us to put displays on their lots.
Yeah,
didn't cost them anything. We invested that. We were the middlemen. So we'd collect orders from the from the Lowe's, and we would pass them on to the Amish or Mennonites in a particular area they were in geographically, and then they would deliver the building.
So Lowe's was taking a little bit.
Lowe's takes a lot.
Yeah. Well, I was saying, I didn't want to overguess there.
No, they took a big percentage, which is, but you're
leveraging the power of the brand and the marketing behind Lowe's.
It's a Fortune 50 company. We were in business with them, and, the company still in business. Eventually, my brother and I, we sold out of our part probably in 2012, but various reasons, but we won't get into that. But it was a great experience to get into business.
Yeah.
And so my mindset was the way I grew up, the way most people grow up is, you think, hey, you're an employee and you want to get control and really get a grip on things, own your own business. And what I didn't realize was I basically owned a job instead of having a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I had two jobs. I had a job and I owned a job. And put a lot of time and effort into the company. And I travel around, train stores and things like that, and work on the computer here and there. And at the end of the day, what was interesting was that when I started to look at what we were actually making, which we were selling, million to $2 million worth of building. I wasn't keeping a whole lot.
Right.
If everything's paid and all, employees and infrastructure, all the stuff that goes in, utilities, all the things goes into having a business. Wasn't keeping a whole lot. And I also had the tax burden I wasn't really aware of, like, hey, you're paying, corporate taxes and, business taxes, and individuals still paying individual taxes. And anyway, so it was a real learning experience. I still really wasn't really able to assess it, though. I really couldn't sit back in a big picture. I hadn't learned what I hadn't learned yet at this point. So what happened for me, and
because as you and I know, and you being a teacher, like, they don't teach you how money works in school.
No.
I think you would agree with that statement.
Oh, absolutely. I was in the dark.
Yeah.
No idea. This is the thing. I was, from a money standpoint, a guy like Dave Ramsey, I've spent some personal time with Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey, he would like a guy like me because I was, I had no credit card debt. Yeah. I managed the money that I made. I managed it pretty well. Miser, whatever you want to call me. But I didn't have a clue really about how money worked and how I can make money work better for me and my family or whatever. So back in 2008, so 3 years into the storage building company, I'm still teaching. And what happened for me was I was in Atlanta for a rock concert with some friends.
Now you got to tell me who the rock concert was.
Rush.
Okay.
Group from Canada.
Yeah.
Old school rock, but progressive rock. But anyway.
I used to be in a band. I would travel doing rock music a little bit. So that's a bit of my backstory.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that's why I had to ask.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, so I'm down there, and one of my former students and basketball players is a chiropractor in Alpharetta, north of Atlanta. He came by the hotel. We were just visiting, and he said, look, I've got this nutritional food I've been using with my patients or giving my patients. Mm-hmm. He said, if you'll review it, you want your family to use it. Well, I was 43 years old at the time, and I was quite convinced I was healthy and taking good care of myself.
Yeah.
But out of respect for him, I brought this nutritional food back to Kentucky, and I gave it to a couple of friends to look at. One was a doctor in pharmacy from the UK, and the other one was a triathlete, one of the top 5 in the state at the time, and he was also a health and PE teacher who lived down the street from me. And so the three of us looked at this nutritional food. We all three decided we would try it. Well, there was a business involved. It was network marketing. I didn't know anything about network marketing. I had no interest in network marketing. But my 29-year-old health and PE triathlete neighbor had a baby on the way. He's like, I've been looking for a way to make some extra money. And so he asked me if I was interested in it. I said, no way. So he decided he would use it, but also share it. And he began sharing it part-time.
Yeah.
In 2 years, he retired from teaching at age 31. And he lives here in Lexington now, probably makes, $1.5 to $2 million a year passively.
Yeah.
He does
truly passively.
Truly passive. Yeah, truly passively. Yeah, it's an incredible story, but we're not here to talk about him. No, but anyway, it's a great story. So
obviously you got into that.
Well, what happened? Yeah, what happened for me was I was, keep in mind I was a middle-aged guy. I thought I knew a lot. I thought I was smarter than he was. I thought that's network marketing. That's what people do. I had a real job. I had real jobs. Had a company I owned, and it's like in my mind I was winning, and he was like playing with nonsense. So as I'm watching, a couple things happen. Number one is the nutritional food actually had real value. And so I was studying that. I was studying health more. I started learning about water and sleep and exercise, nutrition more in depth. And I was like shocked at how ignorant that I really was about taking care of myself. I wasn't failing miserably in all those areas. Now, nutritionally, I was failing miserably. But the other areas, I was okay. But, like for example.
When you say failing miserably in health, maybe I'm assuming I'm living healthy and trying to work out 4 days a week, focusing on proteins, not focusing on sugars or carbs and things of that nature. Is that the level you were at, or were you even at that level? I guess we can have a health conversation real quick.
Well, I was
tangent.
I was drinking water. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it was just probably, 5 on a 10 scale.
Okay.
Exercise, I was probably a 7 on a 10 scale.
Okay.
Sleep, I was probably a 7 or 8 on a 10 scale. So pretty good. Okay. Right. Where you would say, well, you're failing miserably. Nutritionally, I was failing miserably.
Interesting.
Yeah. I wasn't even aware or seeking anything related to nutrition, meaning I wasn't going out and looking for nutrition. I was just eating, and if I got it, I got it. It's like what most people are. They roll the dice. You just hope that it works out.
Rather than kind of taking a holistic picture of here's where I'm not.
I took a multivitamin. I thought that was my trump card. In other words, I was taking a multivitamin. Later on, I realized that synthetic. The body has trouble even recognizing it. It's like it was almost worthless.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Uh, but so I get fired up about that. I mean, I'm kind of like, I'm intrigued. I'm also excited. I'm also kind of down a little bit, thinking how do I go through have a good educational system and all these experiences in life. In fact, I worked when I was coaching basketball. I worked for Michael Jordan for 10 years in Chicago at the Nike basketball camps. I sat through lectures with nutritionists and trainers that work with some of the best athletes on the planet.
Yeah.
So when I said I thought I knew a lot, I thought I knew a lot or I knew enough. So my friend, he was working the networking business, and having some success with it. He said, D, you need to think about sharing what you've been learning. People need to hear, this information. It's not just about moringa or about this nutritional food, but about health. And so I was like, okay. So I started talking to some of my family and friends, people at church. They say, somebody invites me to speak to this group or speak to this group, come to this church or whatever. And it slowly evolved into me talking about health, churches and hospitals and gyms.
Which I'm sure you have to laugh about now, being like, how did I get here? Or would I have ever thought I would be here sitting in front of talking about health to somebody?
Yeah. I mean, it's
in front of an audience.
I've been fortunate I've spoken all over the world on the subject. And here's the thing. It's like, I'm not some, I don't have a PhD in nutrition or a health subject. I'm well read. I've been around a lot of people. I'm about the basics. It's like, what are the fundamental things you got to do? And there's fundamentals with health: water, sleep, exercise, nutrition. You better do those well. You got problems. It's that simple, but it's not being taught. That's the thing that really was disturbing for me, is that all these educational experiences and other things, and nobody's really teaching me. I was around sports, but nobody really taught me how to drink water or the importance of water. I just drank water if I felt like drinking it.
Whereas the only thing I remember from kids is the stupid triangle thing on the back of boxes of cereals and stuff like that. And those are clearly an out-of-date triangle, whatever that was, as far as the different compartments for different parts of food. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about.
Pyramid.
Yeah, that pyramid thing. And it was like, the whole thing's trash now. We've realized in a lot of ways.
That's just a joke, yeah.
But
we could talk about, just cereal. I mean, most cereals, most of them are simply synthetic vitamins, just in the form of a cereal.
Oh, yeah. My wife's gotten me onto, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about this now. So, I think she's helped me a lot of ways from the nutrition standpoint, just as far as looking at what's in food in that capacity. Maybe I'm not supplementing some of the stuff I need to yet, but, honestly, we do raw milk in that capacity, nothing as far as processed stuff. We're trying to limit that. I'm looking at that because does it have seed oils in it? Does it have red dye 40 in it? Does it have this or that? And so I'm like, starting to be more aware and conscious of
that's important. But let me make a point to you, okay, about nutrition. It's not as important that you avoid a bad diet as much as you make sure you're fueling your body properly with the proper nutrients.
Yeah.
Okay? So where people, eating clean is good. Nothing wrong with that. But I've got vegans and vegetarians and juicers that I'm associated with in my organization that eat really clean, but they don't expose themselves to enough nutrients. They'll find 8 or 10 things to juice, and they like them, and they'll just do that over and over again.
Let's just be more conscious of what you're intaking kind of scenario, like you talked about at the beginning of this type of scenario. But
anyway,
yeah.
So most people are, but back to water, most Americans are grossly underhydrated. Water's basically free. Most people suck at it. They're not even aware of it. And there's massive health ramifications by not hydrating properly. And, I talk to a lot of people that are young like you, 25, 35 years old, that they don't even do number 2 correctly. It's not smooth. It's not, whatever. They struggle with that. And the first thing I ask them, do you drink a lot of water or plenty of water? Like, not really.
Yeah.
It's not really a thought. But, so anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm involved now. I'm sharing this health stuff, and I'm actually making some money because people are ordering this nutritional food. And so I get sort of indoctrinated into network marketing. And about a year into it, I was like, the light bulb went off, and I'm like, man, this is an incredible business model. I wish I'd learned about that when I was in school. Think about it. So, biggest benefit for me from a networking standpoint, and I've made a good amount of money in networking, and my health is certainly better. But the biggest thing I gained from it is personal growth, meaning somebody actually came along and challenged me on reading. And I read stuff, at 40, and you're in your 43, 44 years old, you feel like you know enough for life. It's like, man, I'm on the downturn, kind of like I've been there, done that. And I started reading some books. I think I started with The Compound Effect or The Slight Edge. Jeff Olson, Darren Hardy did The Compound Effect. But it started me on a chain reaction of like, this struck me. It's like, I just started devouring books and was just excited about reading and growing. And it made every aspect of my life better, be relationally, spiritually, physically, whatever, financially. And one of the things that I got exposed to was, eventually meet guys like John Maxwell, for example. I spent a lot of time with John Maxwell with leadership, things like that. So I was doing leadership type stuff, but I get exposed to Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
And what's funny was I'd been asked to read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was back in school.
Yeah.
And never did it.
Even all the way back then, you were.
Yeah, like I had a class, I had a graduate class. The professor talked about, hey, check this book out or whatever.
Gotcha.
I didn't read it.
Yeah.
And then I read it, and maybe I wasn't prepared to take it in at that time. Maybe it's like it made sense to me. But anyway, so I read it, and that led to just learning more about real estate. I get his partner Ken McElroy, and like just to get exposed to these people. One thing leads to another. Grant Cardone, all these guys that you hear about, the bigger pockets earlier. Like you get exposed to all these people, these ideas. And to be honest with you, I looked at real estate investing like I did network marketing. It's like, man, this sounds too good to be true. Like, is this really real? It's like,
right.
You get all these benefits, appreciation, tax breaks. It's like it was like, it took me a while for it to click, and keep in mind, I'm approaching a lot of this stuff. I'm very skeptical. I'm very closed-minded, meaning I think I know a lot. That's what I want you to understand. I think I know a lot, but I don't. That's a lot of people. I hate to say it, but a lot of people probably listen to this podcast. I mean, they're educated. They think they know a lot. And they don't know a whole lot. If you're not working on yourself, growing, reading, listening to things on a daily basis, you're stagnant, and you're losing.
And there's a balance there that you can learn everything and still be stagnant from never taking action from what you're learning too. So there's always I think that's the nature of everything in life, right? There's always a balance for anything in our life.
Sure.
There's always too much of this is bad, too little of this is bad. And so finding that balance in that sense.
Here's a life lesson I learned. And, anybody listen to this, and you can take this, take it as a piece of gold. And that is, any area in life you want to succeed in, whether it be financially, relationally, spiritually, physically, whatever it is, there's going to be 3, 4, or 5 on average fundamentals. And if you want to succeed in that, find out what the fundamentals are, and then just lock in and repeat those over and over again. It's boring. Sometimes it's, some people call it mastering the mundane.
Yep.
Mastering the mundane. Like drinking water is not exciting. Sleeping well, exercising, eating right. None of those maybe excite people. But those are the fundamentals. You do those well, you lock in, and you give yourself a chance really to win physically.
And a lot of it, I come back to the whole idea of, everyone likes the view, but they don't like the climb that it took to get somebody took to get there, or they are jealous of where you're at, but not of the grind or the work that it took to get there type of scenario. And that you still have to have action, and find in the action a lot of times is those mundane scenarios that you just don't.
I was telling you, I use this with school children. They can relate to it. At least I think they can. My grandfather was a dentist in Campbellsville for many years. And I always tell the story about when I was in middle school, sitting there, he was filling some cavities I had, and he said, D, if you don't start taking better care of your teeth, they're going to look like that. And he had a poster on the wall with these rotten looking teeth. And I'm like, I knew my grandfather loved me and cared about me, but I'm like, my teeth aren't going to look like that. I couldn't even imagine my teeth looking like that. But the next year I got a girlfriend. So because I had a girlfriend, whatever happened, something clicked. I'm like, I got to take better care of my teeth. So I was brushing a little bit, but I was brushing regularly. And then I started flossing my teeth. Okay. Well, flossing is one of those fundamentals for good, good teeth, good health, good, dental hygiene. And here's the deal. I've been flossing every night for about 45, 46 years now. It takes about a minute of my life.
Yeah.
I don't like doing it, but I like the result. Hey, like the result.
Yeah.
Still got all my teeth, they're not hurting right now. A lot of my friends have full mouths full of dentures. It's like, again, it's a basic fundamental. Don't like it, but I repeat it and I do it over and over and over again because I know it helps me to win in any area in life. And so what I was learning with like finances, for example, I was learning ways to win money. And it was kind of hard to swallow at first because, in my mind, I was taught when I started really learning about money, I had 3 retirement accounts. Why'd I have 3 retirement accounts? Because that's all I knew to do, put money in the stock market. Had an annuity, had a SEP IRA, had my teacher retirement, which I had taken out of when I left teaching early. I took that out of the state,
rolled it over,
put it on my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've got all these retirement accounts. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh man, I'm kicking your butt, Andrew, because I've got 3 retirement accounts. Maybe you've got 1.
Yeah.
And so that's all I knew. And then I'm hearing about real estate investing. Man, this is amazing. So I developed a plan, my wife and I. And our plan was around age 47, I decided that my goal was to have 10 duplexes by the time I was 60. That was my goal. And so what I figured from that was whether I owned them all outright or not, but I could create cash flow about $8,000 to $10,000 conservatively a month.
Yeah.
And I was going to manage them.
Okay.
And that was something I really didn't think about when I started that plan. I didn't really think about that aspect of it. That'll come up in a second, but that was my plan. I owned a couple of duplexes here in Lexington. I started buying them. I also owned a house in Bowling Green. I was renting out to my daughter and some of her fellow student friends.
Sure.
WKU. That's how we got started. Well, along comes the same friend that I was telling you about that did the networking. He decided that he learned about real estate as well. He was learning about it differently than I was. I mean, we weren't really having conversations about it a whole lot. And his wife had some advantages. She was a real estate agent. She owned a bunch of properties early in life, and she kind of knew the game. So they start doing it. They're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing, but we start having these conversations and he's like, D, you might want to consider going bigger. And I'm like, why would I want to do that? He's like, well, there's leverage. There's different advantages of going bigger. And he said, no, we're already started going bigger. We've sold some of our little stuff. We're going bigger.
Yeah.
And he said, the tax advantages are what you really need to consider. Again,
another thing they don't teach you in school is that tax is just a game, basically.
It's like, you just, the way you look at taxes is hey, the government's going to take my taxes. There's really nothing I can do about it. And that's just the way it is.
Right.
One thing I've learned, this is worth a fortune. You understand the tax code in this country is designed to get you and me, Landry, all citizens to do 2 things. Either create jobs or create housing or do both. If you do one of those 2 things, they're going to give you massive tax breaks.
Yep. Massive.
Unbelievable tax breaks. If you do those 2 things, the government sucks at both of those. They want us to do it. They want us to take the risk and do it. So I'm listening to him. And first, to be quite honest with you, one of the big hurdles is your mind, meaning you think, can I really do multi-million-dollar deals? So what I had to understand, and I did eventually understood it, and that is going and buying a duplex is no different than the same process of buying a $5 million apartment complex. It's just more.
Yeah.
It's the same process. You look at the deal, you look at a deal, it's like, what does it come down to? Well, income and expenses. What do the numbers say?
Yeah.
All these properties have a history. Does it make sense or does it not make sense?
Right.
It's either a good deal or it's not a good deal.
I'm talking to you about my recent deal and stuff like that. And it was like the idea of it being a good deal versus not a good deal. Like if it's a good deal, it's a good deal. The crazy part for me is learning that the money part is actually the least of my worries of it. Meaning, and that might seem crazy to anybody that's not started in it or just started into it, but if it's a good deal, it's a good deal. And somebody or can find will have the money that they'll partner with you on it is what
Sure.
you type of scenario. You know what I'm saying? Like you have more time, you found it versus somebody that has money, but just no time to deal with it type of scenario want to. But obviously the benefits of the tax aspect of things and like that is very attractive.
It's huge. Now, and keep in mind, my friend and I were making multiple 6-figure incomes from network.
Yeah.
So we both were, all we did was we were doing networking, even though we were both part-time, he was making a significant amount more than I was. And we were looking for a way to deploy money.
Right.
And at that point, all I was doing was deploying it into the stock market. Right.
Yep.
And so I decided, my wife and I talked about it, prayed about it, and we decided that we were going to go ahead and do that. So I sold what I had and we went bigger. First deal we bought was in Winchester, a set of 21 duplexes in a cul-de-sac, so 42 doors. It was our first purchase. It was $2.4 million. And it was built in the 80s and nothing special about it, but it's been one of our best deals that we've ever gotten. Our first one was, but so we get into this. And so benefits, once we started doing it, one point I was making about myself was I was creating a part-time job for myself to have 10 duplexes. So my friend was saying, like, do you really want to create a part-time job for yourself? Do you want to have the flexibility? He said, you like having the freedom networking, do it when you want, where you want, whatever, with who you want. He said, you don't want to lock yourself down necessarily, do you? And I'm like, no. He said, well, you go bigger, you have the leverage of having management. I really thought about it. I never ever thought about hiring somebody to manage my own stuff. And I'm like, well, I start reading and learning about management. And I loved what I was, obviously you got to find good management. But anyway.
I could talk about that.
Well, we can talk about that if you want to.
But and there's great people out there, but it seems like it's hard. There's more bad managers than there are good managers.
Well, you have to search and you have to do your due diligence to weed them out. I mean, that's on you. A lot of people just like some people say, well, I've got a problem. I'm going to go to a lawyer.
Right.
Well, does your lawyer focus on your problem? And is he really good for your particular problem? Is he just a lawyer?
So my business partner, I've had him on here before, but he was a teacher for business partner on the real estate side, not the insurance side. Because I don't have time to deal with tenants and everything that comes with it, but I have lots of opportunities and no relationship with banks. I think that way. I was like, I got to get into this space. So we both, I kind of are complement each other extremely well in that sense. And we'd gone through the hills and valleys of life in general, been to the bottom and back type of idea. But we got into real estate, and then he started managing it, and it was crazy how quickly if anything from this whole story, I'm just more excited for the fact that he was able to kind of leave his principal job or his teaching job a year ago now, and has been building houses, and now is managing, I think, somewhere like 250, 300 rentals in that time span, and how just because the quality of the work he does, communication, et cetera, how quickly he was able to amass a full-on business. And I told him early on, I was like, dude, you're just gonna have to make the jump. You're just gonna have to quit the job and just go all in, because that's what it's going to take. And you're going to be amazed. I was like, you're going to be amazed at how quickly it ramps and takes off once you're committed.
It's difficult. He's like me. He was indoctrinated, meaning you have to unlearn and relearn some things and make that decision. It was hard for me to step. I mean, I like to teach, actually. I enjoyed my position as teaching. I was actually a professor at adjunct at Campbell's University as well. And so I enjoyed teaching, but after a while it became silly to not focus my time and actually, have some time freedom. I mean, I could do other things with my time, and I got to speak more. And actually, I was still teaching. I was just talking about health.
Yeah, true. So, what are you up to today as far as that, the real estate side of it? Or
well, we're at this point. We've been very fortunate.
Still multifamily, I assume.
Yeah, it's all multifamily. Yeah, we can talk about that too. But when you find a lane to run in, if it's working, you need to run in your lane. It's like a lot of people get sideways, and there's a lot of things you can do in real estate. I mean, from an investing standpoint. But so I've done flips. Back in the day, that's probably 10 years ago, I did flips here in Lexington for about 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 former ball players who were house appraisers here in the area, and they would, we'd have a couple of real estate agents, they'd find us deals, and it worked really well. Yeah. But then the market changed, meaning there were more people competing for these, what you could buy a house for 75 to 100,000. Now there were 125, 150,000. Mm-hmm. Well, right there, it kills your flip, because, it's like, you got to buy cheap, and we learned a lot. I mean, we made money in every house we ever did, but here's what I learned is, you got experienced people assessing these deals and saying, okay, here's the comps in the area. Here's what we are getting the house for. Here's what we need to put into the house. We feel, here's what we think we can sell it for. Hey, great. Mm-hmm. Every time we did one, we always either spent a little bit more to fix it up than we thought, or we got a little bit less for it than we predicted, or we spent maybe less to fix it up and have it listed, and we eventually sell it for what we want to sell it for, but it sat there for 6-8 months.
Which basically equaled out, washed it out.
Insurance. Well, it's expensive, keep the yard mowed. It's like little things that just add up. And so we made money on every deal we did, but the margins would get squeezed for various reasons. And so after a while, I sat with them, because I was just the money guy. Because I sat with them, I said, is this really worth your time to continue to do this? Are you making enough extra money? And they're like, really, not really at this point. We're not making enough extra money to make it worth our while. So we just shut it down.
Yeah.
And so, So I have played the flipping game and all that stuff. And anyway, for us personally, we're buying multifamily, and we're doing it in Winchester and Richmond.
Still buying multifamily?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah.
This is our lane. That's what we run in. We're strictly that.
Perfect.
But we tried. We got a little cute. So our management company, they built things.
Okay.
And construction company, and then they manage things. And so they had a little nice setup going on for themselves. And we got kind of like interested, like, well, maybe we should start building stuff. So we found a nice piece of property in central Kentucky. It's about 15 acres. Bought it for about $500,000. It's great area. I mean, a great area. It's actually, the new Buc-ee's down there in Richmond.
Okay.
It's down there, right in that area. So we knew that this has been 5 years ago. We knew that it was an up and coming area. So we bought the property, and we're going to build 204 brand new apartments. Property. We went through all the engineering. Spent about $30,000 on that, and we're ready to go. Well, we started assessing the numbers, and we're looking at like, man, it's about $17 million. Won't be probably making any money until maybe a year and a half into this thing. We already got $500,000 in it. It's already sat there for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Preparing. It's like we got this money deployed. We're not really getting a return on it. And then we looked at like the projections of the cost. Well, we had the numbers resubmitted because a few months had gone by, ready to start, and margins has already changed a little bit. Like then we're thinking like things like, well, what if they hit rock? Dug a little bit, but not super deep. Like they so cost you another $100,000, whatever, depending on how much rock, whatever. So we're looking at it, and we decided that we weren't going to do it because we're like, hey, too many variables, margins are being squeezed here, and lock this money in for that amount of time and take that risk. Now, if you say, hey, would you like to jump forward 2 years? You got 204 brand new units. Would it be great? Oh, it'd be awesome. But there's a lot of things that go on between then and the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't get shiny object syndrome in real estate.
So we thought about it, prayed about it. We decided not to do it. The bank begged us to do it. And I say beg, I mean literally, like, if we'd been in person, they'd been on their knees. Why aren't you guys doing this deal? We think this is a heck of a deal. Like you did all this work.
Yeah.
It's like,
why
do
now?
This deal. We decided not to do it. We made that decision in December of 2019.
I figured we were going somewhere over there.
Well, it would have been a good decision, I think, anyway. But then COVID hit, 3 months later,
Mm-hmm.
and then you talk about, we would have been pulling our hair out. You'd had all this money invested sitting there, not getting a return, and the cost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our margins would have been upside down. Our women margin would have been upside down.
Yeah.
And so it was a very good decision. And what we learned from that, we just told ourselves, look, let's just run in our lane. And our lane is, why make it complicated? A property has a history. Look at the history. Does it make sense or does it not make sense?
Yeah.
Move on. Just keep looking at that. So we've been doing that. And the money that we would have used in that deal, we got into Bowling Green and Owensboro. So we're in Paris, Richmond, Winchester, Bowling Green, and Owensboro. And the reason we're in those areas geographically, though, is because of management. We found,
Mm-hmm.
found good management companies that we feel like we can count on. We've been very fortunate because
they're your eyes and ears at the end of the day. And
everything.
You can't be there all the time, and you've got to trust that they're doing what they say they're doing. And
we check them. We're like the pit boss watching the dealers at the casino. We're watching and we're reading things and keeping it. We have our meetings and we talk and this, that, and the other. We challenge them on things if we need to or whatever. Yeah. But they are the key. If you don't have key management, you got problems. I mean, don't have good management, you have problems. So that's why we're where we are geographically at this point. Doesn't mean we won't go other places, but we have that's a pretty broad scope of Kentucky. Some decent areas. We like these sub markets, especially like Winchester, Richmond, Paris.
Yeah.
And so,
speaking to the future, though, I mean, I've recently been more on the lines of like thinking that like Cardone and some of these guys are talking about where, the percentage of homeowners to renters probably flips back to where there's more renters to homeowners. Do you see that going the same? Probably.
Yeah,
it's
moving.
direction?
It seems to be moving. If you look at the last, say, 10 years, it seems to be moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Is that exciting? I guess it's exciting, but it's also, I wish more people could afford homes.
Totally.
I mean, it's, I think that, I think ultimately America, it's nice if people, say, hey, I lived in an apartment or a duplex for a while. I'd like to kind of own my own place and all that. Also, it's kind of disappointing because it seems that would be a little bit of a barrier to people getting into being real estate investors, meaning, a lot of people are starting off. I've encouraged people to do this, like, buy yourself a duplex, rent one side, live in the other and all that. And, as those expenses go up and the cost of debt and the appreciation or, the cost of the housing goes up, it may, put a barrier on some people getting into that initially.
And a lot of it's, as you and I know, just regulatory things that are honestly not helping the cause there in that capacity with home ownership or the inflationary aspect of getting money piped into the economy that now made everything that much more expensive. And
if the government would stay out of it, a lot of times it would be a lot better. They seem to muddy the waters themselves, or they allow, and it's not just on the government, but I mean, there's a lot of things that muddy the water, and people that don't deal with ethics, things ethically and having good integrity, which a lot of people that operate that way, and so it's in the end the little guy usually gets hurt. It all flows down
Unfortunately,
that's just the way it is. But
back to your knowledge about education and reading books, learning, etc. I mean, and that's where obviously you did. That's what I did, honestly, in that sense, or asking questions. Like, whether it's not a book, maybe it's not on YouTube. Man, if I had had YouTube back when I was a kid, like how much I'm on there all the time learning. But honestly, just also having conversations and how there's more people, way more people in life in general that are more than willing to kind of give you their insight, help bring you along, teach you some of these things that they've been taught for free, basically. Absolutely. That you just have to ask kind of scenario.
I meet with people all the time that want to talk about things that they want advice or direction or whatever. And I'm happy to help. And there's people that help me,
Yeah, exactly. Like somebody helped me. Let me help you.
Some of the mentors, I've had, I never met. They came out of books, audio tapes or whatever.
Yeah.
And back in the day, it's like, it's again, a big picture view here is we should all be growing and trying to prove ourselves. John Maxwell said it best. He said, the only hope for a better tomorrow is personal growth today. You got to work on yourself. And what's interesting is that's the only tangible thing that you control. Yeah. You don't control your wife or your kids or anybody else. So if you want things to get better, work on yourself.
I think we should just leave it right there. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time coming on down here to the space to kind of record your story, and I appreciate that. And we will see everybody back here on next week's episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Appreciate it, D.
Take care.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.